What's up, fellow autism? One of my coworkers gave me a little toy to play with. This is the Miyoo Mini Plus, a cool little emulation handheld. I've heard nothing but good things about this, so I'm excited to see what this puppy can do. Let's check it out. So I have a little backstory about this thing. A couple months ago, one of my coworkers gave this to me. He bought it off Amazon to play a bit of Pokemon or some other games like that, but I guess it didn't work out for him, so he gave it to me. And then I was like, hey, I could do a gadget prawn on this. And here we are. Now, I'm not too big into emulation, and I'm not necessarily familiar with the portable emulator scene, but I've heard that this is actually really popular, partially because of the price. You can buy one of these off Amazon for like 60 to 70 bucks, and you can probably get it cheaper if you buy one off AliExpress. Anyways, enough of that. Let's check out what came in my box. In the box, we got the Miyoo Mini Plus itself. We got a USB SD card reader. We got a USB-C charging cable, some wipes to clean the screen with, and a micro SD card. My Miyoo came with a 64 gigabyte micro SD card, but I definitely recommend you back this up and transfer everything to a different SD card, a better SD card, something that's not as failure prone as these cheap ones can be. Now, looking at the device itself, in the front, we got a 3.5 inch 640 by 480 IPS screen. We got Nintendo style buttons right here and our menu button right here. On the back, we got the shoulder buttons and a 3000 milliamp hour rechargeable battery, which I heard can last up to like 7 hours, but I haven't played long enough to test. We have volume buttons on the side, a power button and some LEDs on the top. And on the bottom, we got a 3.5 millimeter audio out, the SD card slot, and a USB-C charging port. I do wish that this thing had an HDMI port because capturing gameplay would be a lot easier if it did have one, but I get it. This thing is small and there's not a lot of space, so I get it. Also, I've had issues with the micro SD card slot. It just takes a lot of force to push down. It's a little difficult, it's a little annoying, but whatever, it's not a big deal. So how does this feel? Well, my hands are kind of big, so extended play sessions can get really uncomfortable at times. The D-pad feels fine, the buttons feel fine, but it is a little cramped in my opinion. The shoulder buttons are a little weird to me because I'm just used to shoulder buttons being like this. It does take some time getting used to it, but when you're playing games, you're kind of like this sometimes, and it's just really uncomfortable. Overall, the Miyoo feels fine. It's a little cramped for my liking, but it's otherwise fine. Now let's talk about the software side of things. Please note that I am running stock firmware. I am aware of Onion OS, which I've heard improves a lot of things with the Miyoo, but I haven't tried it out yet. Anyways, the Miyoo has a couple of sections. Recent shows the most recently played games. Favorite shows your favorite games. Game has all your systems and ROMs. RetroArch shows you even more emulators. App shows you some miscellaneous apps that can be installed onto the device. And then there's setting. I wonder what that does. Now, most of your time with the Miyoo, other than playing games, is browsing through the game section. You have a great selection of consoles that this can emulate. NES, Genesis, Game Boy Advance, and the PS1 to name a few. And as I said before, the RetroArch section has even more emulators you can try out, which is nice. There's also a section called FF Play, and my SD card came with a mysterious video with Chinese text on it. I wonder what it is. Fuck you, Miyoo. Anyways, once you find your game, just start playing. If you want the Miyoo's menu to show up, just hit the menu button. Here, you can save and load states, quit the game, or you can open up your emulator's native menu. Here, you can change whatever settings you want for the emulator. But I've noticed on some emulators that the settings won't save if you quit the game, so keep that in mind if you're running stock firmware. Speaking of emulators, how is the emulation of this thing? Well, you can't screw up the simplest of emulators, that's for sure. The emulation is great, and I've had little issues with it. The issues I can think of are minor. For example, in Castlevania on the NES emulator, your player sprite glitches out whenever you get hit. Also, initially I had issues with the PlayStation emulation. I kept getting screen tearing even with VSync on. I don't have any footage of this because it somehow fixed itself one day, so that's cool. In general, I've also had some slight audio stutter for a split second on some emulators. Other than that, the emulation is great. One more thing, and this isn't necessarily an emulation issue, some of the ROMs that the Miyoo came with just doesn't work for some reason. Now, it's not a big deal because you can load your own ROMs, but unfortunately, I had trouble doing that. I copied over a PS1 game and even created a folder for that game, and for some reason, the Miyoo just doesn't see the folder or the ROM. I tried refreshing it and it didn't help, so I don't know what the hell is going on there. And before I wrap this up, let's talk about some of the apps real quick, or one of the apps. They're not anything noteworthy, but one of them did catch my eye, and that is a port of Super Mario 64. Yeah, there's a port of that. Overall, it's a bit uncomfortable to play because of the D-pad, and the performance is hit or miss, 15-ish FPS in most areas, but it's fine. I just wanted to bring it up because it's Mario 64. Like, who doesn't love Mario 64? Anyways, with all that said, do I recommend the Miyoo Mini Plus? Well, yeah. Form factor-wise, I prefer something a little bit bigger or maybe horizontal, but the emulation is great, as expected. For a little pocket emulation device, it's solid. That's all I have to say. I give it a 4 out of 5. It's well worth the hype. But to be honest, if I were to use a cool little emulation device, I'd probably use my Vita. Or maybe I could try a Steam Deck. If only I was rich. Thank you so much for watching. If you're looking for more ENunnGaming, check out my 25th anniversary review of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, the game that kinda got me into gaming. Have a good one, y'all, and I'll see you soon. Bye.